Hello, my name is Joanna and I'm a third year medical student in New York City. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience in my internal medicine clerkship. So, just a brief overview. Medical school in the US is 4 years. Your first 2 years, you're learning content. So, you're either doing basic sciences at some schools or organ systems, like at my school. And then your third and fourth year are your clerkship years, which is when you go into the hospitals and you're rotating through different specialties. So, internal medicine, pediatrics, psychiatry, OB-GYN, family medicine, surgery are those 6 rotations we do in third year at my school. And then in our fourth year, we have 3 rotations that are, is it mandatory? Required? Yeah, required. Anyway, that's emergency medicine, critical care. So either we don't have PICU, we have SICU, MICU, NICU, and CCVU, which is like cardiac ICU. And then we also have a sub internship. So you do a sub internship in either medicine, pediatrics, or surgery. Yes. So I'm going to be talking about my third year. Right now I'm on rotation 4, right? Yeah, I'm on rotation 4, which is OB-GYN. Yeah, but I will be talking about my very first one, and that is internal medicine, and it was just a doozy. So first, my actual first rotation of third year was online because of the panorama, and so hospitals were like, get the students out of here, we have to deal with this, which makes sense. So slowly but surely, students were allowed back in the hospitals to learn and to help. And so that's been great. So I started, my first rotation was online, which was doing like, oh, what's that thing called? Aquifer cases. I know a bunch of people do aquifer cases. We were doing aquifer cases, we were listening in on lectures, all that stuff. Then my first rotation, internal medicine. Now, I want to do internal medicine, right? Like that's one of the things that's what I want to apply for residency. I'll speak more about exactly what I'm going to be doing for ST applications in another video, but internal medicine is a big part of that plan, right? So I went in and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna come in here. I'm gonna be an intern. I'm gonna blow everyone away. I'm gonna be the best student. No, no, no. First of all, I have anxiety, so I was just doing a lot. And then because I went in with the mindset of I'm going to blow everyone away, I was in a performance mindset instead of a learning mindset. So instead of taking everyone's critiques of me or evaluations of me and trying to grow from it, for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I was so hurt by everything. Cause I was just like, I'm a failure. I'm a failure to myself, to my parents. I should live under a. I was so hard on myself because I felt like I had to prove myself because I didn't do as well as I wanted to do on step 1. So I was like, oh, I have to blow everyone away to get a letter that will blow residencies away to do great things, right? And so I went in trying to perform rather than to learn. Screwed me up for like the first 3 weeks. I would be crying in the library. My friends would find me and they're like, girl, you have to hold it together. Like, I understand this is a lot. And then, first of all, the hospital where I was placed for my internal medicine rotation is about an hour and 15 minutes driving from me, and then 3 hours on public transportation, which we were not doing because in this Panda Express, there was no, like, the trains weren't running early enough for me to go. And then also, some people don't wear their mask on the train. I just wasn't doing that. So, and I know how to drive. So I was like, all right, good. We're going to do this. So I was waking up 3:30, 4 a.m. to make it to the hospital for pre-rounding at like 6:30. And it was just so hard, so stressful. It was just a lot. So I was waking up 3, 4 in the morning to get there on time for pre-rounding at 6:30. So what pre-rounding is when you go, you pick your patients, you see your patients, you review their charts because you're going to present them at rounds. And round 2 the attending was at 8. And so I'd get to the hospital, I'd go over the patient charts, I would interview my patients, I'd do a quick physical on them. And if you're in the hospital, you want to focus on, okay, what are we doing to get them home? What needs to be done to get them home? Which specialties are we calling? What referrals do they need? What do they need for discharge planning? Do we need to send them home with any equipment? Do we need to send them home with a dark code boot? Do we need to send them home with oxygen? Like, what do we have to do to get them home or to get them to where they need to go? So we had some people, especially older people, who would go to like nursing homes or skilled nursing facilities, and we have to figure out, okay, what's needed for them to get there. And especially because of this pucker mode that we're living in, um a lot of times I was doing multiple COVID tests on the patients because they needed to have, I think, two negative within 72 hours to go to a skilled nursing facility or to go to a nursing home, things like that. Anyway, so I was preparing my presentations for rounds in the morning, which is why I had to get there at 6:30 to see all the patients, to prepare all these things, to figure out what they need. Then I would meet with my intern, then we would have rounds, right? And I have such bad anxiety. I'm great at talking, like I talk on camera, I talk to people, but when it comes to rounding, it was also because my attending for the first 4 weeks of my 6 week rotation is an incredible doctor, incredible, but also very intimidating. So it's like I'm just looking at this person that I admire because he's truly an amazing doctor and an amazing teacher. So I was just like, this is someone that I want to be like. But then it was also that I was so anxious and I just felt I would always stop. Like in the beginning, he would ask me a question and I would shut down, or like I would go after hours and I would start crying because I felt like such a disappointment. And it's like looking back, as he was just wanting to teach me. Like one time, he even said, "Joanna, I'm gonna make you a better doctor. You have to go with it." But I was just so anxious. So I would prepare all these things. I would find, because on the unit for the first 4 weeks were a few students. So it was myself and four other students. I would find whoever was closer to me and like practice my presentation with them. And I was like, if I present this to attending, is it good? And they'd be like, yeah. But then when I get in front of attending, it's like my mind goes blank. And it was wild. I was like, what is going on? Like, I used to act in college. Like I was a theater minor. I've been on stage. I've done scenes. I've done all these things. Why is it that to do this presentation in front of the attending, I'm actually just stopping in my tracks? Like there's two different situations where my intern had to keep presenting for me, and I felt so bad because when I say, or when the student says, I'm gonna take this patient to present, your intern leaves that to you. So yeah, they're gonna pick up the pieces. They need to know all the cases, but they also did not come into round saying, I'm gonna present this. They came into round saying the med student got this. So you can't just put it on them last minute to say, oh, I can't finish, you present it. I felt so bad. And one situation, one of the interns, he was amazing. I freaking love him. He's awesome. He took me aside. He's like, present it again to me. And I presented it again, and he was like stopping me and correcting me. He's like, no, say this, no, do that. And then he was like, you got it. Just do that every day. It was just an experience. It was ridiculous. So looking back, the tips I would give myself and the tips I will give anyone watching this video who's going into their internal medicine rotation is, number one, you have to make the time to read and to know what you are doing. So like I mentioned earlier, I lived an hour to an hour 15. So when we would get off around, honestly, a lot of times you get off around 3 or 4. We have morning rounds and you have afternoon rounds at 2:30. And normally after afternoon rounds, the interns would let us go. So I was leaving at 2:30 or whenever they dismissed us when rotation first started. But then I realized it was taking me 2.5 hours to get home because I was leaving at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and that's like the start of rush hour. My dad explained to me that rush hour is like 3 to 7, like the afternoon rush hour, because you have people who start shifts at different times in that block. So you have people that start at like 4, 5, 6, or 7, because you have like people who do 7s to 7s and who do, well, it's just a big explanation. I was like, all right, so what you're telling me is to leave the hospital after 7, right? So instead, I started to, this was around week 2, I started to just stay in the hospital and study in the library. And then I would start heading home around 7, and I would get home at 8. And when I would get home, I'd be so tired. I would just pass out because I was waking up again at 3:30 the next morning. It wasn't a good time. So I do have to be understanding of the situation I was in. And before anyone says it, I did try to look into moving to Staten Island, but it was just too late. Like once the rotation started, like once day 1 hit, I was like, I'm not moving now. I'm not moving now. I need to be focused, so I'm just not moving now. So I didn't. So even with that schedule, I wish I used my time more wisely, because sometimes I would just be sitting, like I would just be sitting in the library until 7, like looking stuff up online, like looking at residency programs and doing random stuff. Or I'd be talking to my friends who are rotating in um, some other specialties, like the surgery kids, or I'll talk to some of my friends I made from the other schools, because at that hospital there was a lot of other not a lot of other medical schools. There were 2 other medical schools and a bunch of like PA and nursing programs too. So I'll talk to some other people as well. And sometimes I'll just eat and chill in the cafeteria. So I definitely wasn't using my time wisely. But honestly, you have to read. If you had a case, I've had a lot of acute kidney injuries. I should have thoroughly reviewed acute kidney injuries. I should have thoroughly reviewed the differences in the electrolyte balances and stuff like that, because there was a day when I came to rounds and I said, oh, this patient is hyponatremic. And the attending asked me immediately, he's like, did you correct that sodium for their glucose? And I didn't do that, right? So it's important to really take the time to read up on the things that you're seeing and you're presenting in the hospital. And I wasn't doing that in the beginning. So yes, the first tip is read up on every single case, every single patient you have. Acute kidney injury, read up on it. I had a diabetic foot ulcer. I should have read up completely on diabetes and all of the sequelae associated with it, the microvascular, the macrovascular, all of that. I saw there was a lady with an acute kidney injury, but she was presenting with that because she wasn't eating, because she was depressed. So in that situation, you're reading up on acute kidney injury and you're reading up on depression. Then you're reading up on like the chemical causes of mental illness. So like glucocorticoids induce psychosis, things like that. Like there's so much to go off on in these situations, and at different age groups, different medications. And I wasn't doing that enough. I didn't start doing it well until maybe week 4 of 6, right? So I would say from the beginning, every patient, every case you have, read up on those things very thoroughly. One of the students, he had someone that had some super rare cause of encephalopathy. And I should have read up on it too, just because he told me that was the case. But yeah, so definitely read up on everything. The second tip I have for you is to get to know how you're expected to present. And there's 2 types of presentations. There's the new patient presentation when you're doing like an HMP, and then there is the existing patient, or like the patient who's been there, their presentation, which is where you start off with your summary statement and you just go into the overnight events and things like that. You do not present the whole HMP for an old patient. You only do that for new patients. So what you should do is practice both those presentations. I really wish, looking back, that I almost like rehearsed presentations in my mirrors and thought of what they were going to ask me and things like that, because I would just get so clammy and so nervous. And yes, of course, I did practice with my friends on the unit, like I told you before. But knowing that I have such bad anxiety and knowing that I was pausing and stopping and crying in the beginning, I really should have taken the time to practice presenting cases in my mirror. Like I have the Step 2 CS book. Read cases that go along with what I was seeing in the hospital and practice presenting them to myself in the mirror, practice writing notes about them, because that's how you get better. You have to practice. The third thing I wish I did was take more initiative, right? So I'm now in my fourth rotation and I still struggle with like punctures, and I still struggle with putting in IVs. During internal medicine, they're all hospitalized patients. That was the perfect opportunity for me to say, can you teach me how to do a blood draw? And then I'll continue doing all the blood draws. Can you watch me do this IV? And then I'll continue putting in IVs. You have to be proactive. I was to a point, but sometimes you do have to be annoying. And I was worried about being annoying. And so if I asked once, I wouldn't ask again. No, you ask until they finally teach you and they finally show you, because you have to learn. You have to learn these things, because now, now I'm definitely putting in the initiative, and I ask, because I'm an OB-GYN, I always ask, can I do this blood draw? Can I put in this IV? Can I do that? And all the people who I'm working with, all the nurses are so nice, and they always watch me and try and help with my technique. But I would be so much better if I actually took that initiative in my first rotation, when I had all these hospitalized patients who have to get blood draws like every single day, and I would never do it. So there's that. So what are we up to? We're up to number 4. Number 4, finish your questions. This is a hard one because internal medicine has the most practice questions of any specialty, right? Because we use UWorld in high school. So internal medicine definitely has the most questions. But I should have finished them. I wasn't doing enough. Like I have to give myself credit for what I did do, but I have to be honest in that I didn't do enough. I should have been doing more questions. Did I pass the shelf? Of course I passed the shelf. That's how I'm here. But I still have like 900 internal medicine questions that I should have finished during internal medicine. What I do now in my rotations is that you study from day one, even before day one if you have the time. So what I do now is, before I start rotation, I figure out how many questions I have to do a day to finish all the questions by week 3, so that week 4 and 5 I'm doing incorrects, right? And so because the other rotations, so like I've done psych, I've done peds, I'm now an OB-GYN, have way less questions than internal medicine, I can get away with doing 20 to 40 questions a day for 3 weeks and being done, and then starting my incorrects. I didn't have that luxury in internal medicine, but I also started super late. So at one point I was doing 80 questions a day. Like for weeks 4, 5, and into week 6, I was doing 80 questions a day and I still didn't finish. And it was just unrealistic. And I was reviewing them and I wanted to cry. I was like, this is horrible. So at one point I was just like, all right, you know what? Let me just stop doing this. Let me do the MBMEs and learn that information. So, oh, tip number 5, do all your MBMEs, do all 4 of them. I did all my MBMEs and I passed the shelf, but I will definitely say I should have studied more. I don't know what tip I'm up to right now, but I want to talk about resources now. So, as I said, you should be reading up on every case. A great thing to use to do your reading is UpToDate. I love UpToDate. I actually love UpToDate. I have a little tablet I bought. It's just like a Samsung tab, which was much cheaper than the iPad mini. And it works for me because I can expand the memory. So I put a bunch of review books on it, and I have UWorld on it, and I also have the UpToDate app on it. But I have UpToDate on that. I have UpToDate on my phone. I have UpToDate on my laptop. UpToDate. Every hospital like has an UpToDate like a subscription or something. So in any hospital you're in, if you have access to a computer, you could just look up UpToDate. So I love UpToDate. It's a great way to read up on things. Yes. And then another thing that's great to use is your first aid for step 1, because remember, this is just information that's kind of a step up from those things. So you can do a quick content review in that. Like you can read through the renal chapter real quick. If you're doing like kidney stuff, if you have a kidney case, you can read through the endo chapter real quick. If you had a diabetes case like I did, you're gonna see a lot of diabetes. You're gonna see a lot of hypertension. So first aid is a great resource too. UpToDate is a great resource. There's OnlineMedEd videos. Those are really good. It's a free membership. It's free to join, and you can watch all the videos free with ads. But I think you do have to enter up subscription to get access to the notes. Each of the videos have notes. I just didn't use notes. I watched the videos and then yeah, I watched the videos. But if you do want to get access to the notes, and I believe they also have questions there, you can join the site. I believe it's not like osmosis or sketchy where you pay for a certain block of times, like you pay for 3, 6, or 12 months of access. Well, osmosis is like a monthly subscription, so they charge you, I want to say, like $25 a month. So there's that. But again, you can watch the videos free with ads. So, but what I did buy though is they have like a whiteboard companion book. So if you watch the videos, he's writing on the right whiteboard. So the book I think was like $25 too, but you can just buy that. So I only bought that. I still have free OnlineMedEd, and then I'd watch the videos and I read through the whiteboard companion book and just review the notes that way. So that works too. So that's another resource. Of course, you need your QBank. UWorld is the gold standard. Right? So there's other rotations that have their own stuff. So like for family medicine, there's the AAFP questions, but for the most part, UWorld has questions for each rotation. So I just use UWorld for this, and it worked great. Any other resources to mention for the internal medicine rotation? You can read Step Up to Medicine. A lot of people suggest it on like the Reddit world or whatever. I started reading Step Up to Medicine, and don't get me wrong, it's a great book. I just truly didn't have time. Like I said, I was at the hospital from 6 in the morning till 8 p.m. I wasn't using my time very wisely. I was, again, like I said, I was doing like 80 questions a day towards the end, but in the beginning, I was just like chatting. But yeah, you can read Step Up to Medicine. I know some friends are reading it now to like prepare in advance for Step 2 CK. You can. It is a good book. It's up to you. I just didn't have the time, and I also felt like anything passive. I was tired all the time. So if I did anything passive like reading something, I was gonna fall asleep. Which is why videos worked for me, which is why questions worked for me during that rotation. I normally love reading books, but it was gonna knock me out. So I stayed away from that. But I do highly recommend it. It's a great book. I have read some of it. I do plan to incorporate it in some way as I start reviewing for Sub 2 CK. Is that it? I think that's it. Honestly, the moral of the story is just go in with a learning mindset, and you're gonna meet some personalities that you don't vibe with, but you're also gonna meet a lot of nice people and a lot of people who really want you to learn and be a better you. So stick on to that. If you mess up, like, let it go past you, wash it off, and keep going, and you'll do great things. I'm still here, and I was a mess back then, so let this inspire you. I'm sorry for the lighting change, like the sunset as I was filming this. So, yep. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Hopefully, it's sooner than, yeah. Okay, bye.